Hello, everybody. Welcome to, actually, the display table, because I have actually finished my projects, finally, at long last, and I took them to competition, and I kind of won. So I find myself a little bit at loose ends, so I thought it would be a good idea to take a few videos of the projects themselves, how they wound up, and to talk about the process a little bit before moving on to the next project, because of course the reward for finishing projects is starting new projects. The project that wound up doing best in competition is actually this one, which was kind of my side project, an iron-bound chest. This project got started when I was given this wooden box, this Norman 6-board chest, from a reenactor who was trimming his reenactment goods. And I thought, as a blacksmith, well, I know how to improve this. I'll add iron bands to it. And I think that would be fairly easy to document. This will be a quick and easy project. It was not a quick and easy project. It was straightforward. That much was true. The research was fairly easy to conduct and was actually fairly rewarding. So I started off with an artifact survey, and I thought that I would wind up doing decorative finials on all of these straps because that's what was done, right? But no, actually, over half of the objects, not quite, but almost, not sure if it's over half or not quite half, more than double any other finial style is actually these slightly spatulate, squared off ends of iron straps. I know that it's more than any two other finial styles. I think it was half. Yeah, half. That is the most common style of iron strapping, and that kind of makes sense because not all of these big chests were for display. What you find most often, actually, is that these chests were in parish churches, and they were called parish chests. And so the collection or vestments or anything valuable could be locked up in the parish, and these usually were inconveniently large and heavy to steal or break into to rob. Not necessarily if there was a Viking raid where the place was occupied for a few days. Well, then anything could be broken into over that amount of time. But for a quick smash and grab, these iron-bound chests worked very well as short-term vaults. And so what I did was I took mild steel, iron, strapping. I used a 1/4 inch, and then I worked all of it down. Worked all of it down, and you get some variation in the thickness of the object because you're doing handwork. So if you look from here to here, and then to here, there's variation in the thickness of all of these. I found that iron strapping was really, there were three kind of common thicknesses. There was one style that was very, very thick, and it was usually on the coarsest of work. The next style was about here, a little bit proud of 1/8 of an inch. A little bit more than an eighth, but certainly not up to a 1/4 inch. And then there was a third style, and this was usually the most ornate, that was almost paper thin. And it was much more decorative than functional. And so I shot in the middle for something a little heavier than 1/8 of an inch, but not quite a 1/4. And I wanted there to be some good dimensionality in the strapping. So I wound up making an iron frame that was the same width as my chest. One of the nice parts about having a square 6-board chest is that it is square, and so the dimension or this dimension is here, 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 and here, all the same. So I can make one jig so that I could bend these precisely and that it would fit well. And that's what I did. That's how I made this fit up so nicely. I had an iron jig. And that would have been appropriate in history also. People weren't stupid. Now, they may not have made a jig that was entirely made of iron, but it would have probably been wood for the body and then had iron corners so that they could do exactly the same thing that I did. Let's see. The ring pulls. Ring pulls were almost universal up until the 16th century. Now, in the 15th century, you do see kind of triangular pulls, but rings were still by far the most common. From the very earliest surviving chests that we have, which come from the 13th century, there are ring pulls. Now, I will say, back at that time, the ring pulls were so small. They were like that. Uncomfortably, hand-crushingly small. And so I wonder if they weren't actually for bearing bars. I do wonder that. If it wasn't intended for, you would slip a bar through and then carry it around. Most of these chests were intended to be uncomfortably heavy to transport, to move at all. So tiny little ring handles does not, you might be able to get 2 fingers through some of the oldest ring pulls, but then later on in history it became very obvious that they were intended to be used as handles. And so I forged out these rings, and I was so happy with how these welds came out. Let me see. Yes, right here is the end of one lap weld, and it goes down to right here, and that blended in so nicely. I was so proud of it. That's about as good as any blacksmith can expect. But then I came around on the other side. This is the other one, and that's almost invisible. It's almost invisible. So the welds there came out so well. I was so proud of that. And that is entirely in contrast to the welds on my hinges. Oh my goodness, that was awful. And so I wound up actually cheating on my hinges a little. These are the second hinges that I constructed. The first hinges in history are most commonly the rolled style of hinge that's not secured, and I've always found those to be to not be very robust. If there's any wear and tear on the object, those hinges just start to unroll and they go first. And the other kind was kind of a fold over strap, where here, it would just be laid over like this, and this would be forge welded close, and you kind of have a teardrop shaped opening for the pin, and you'd have to have kind of an exaggerated large pin, but you can do that. Well, when I did that and I forge welded the end of the strap, they didn't stick. Anytime that I went to manipulate to spread the knuckles apart or thin down knuckle, my welds popped. And I got so frustrated, I just couldn't make the darn thing work. So either I had to just give up and go with a hinge that was not welded closed, and I didn't like that option at all, or I did what I did and I cheated. I said, fine, I'll do it a different way. Because on coffers, smaller objects, you will see solid punched hinge elements. So that's what I did. I started with my 1/4 inch, because it started out at 1/4 inch strapping, and I took a big block of a higher carbon steel. I honestly don't remember if that was 1045 or if it was 4140. Doesn't matter. Higher carbon content steels tend to stick in the forge weld better than mild steels. Mild steels do not like to stick to each other in forge welding, which is in contrast to wrought iron. Wrought iron was forge welded beautifully because it had an even lower carbon content, and it was self-fluxing because of the silicon ribbon contamination. It acts as it's self-fluxing. But high carbon steels like to stick together in forge welds, which is one reason that bladesmiths really enjoy forge welding decoratively. So I cheated. I stuck a big block of high carbon steel on top of my hinge strap, forge welded that, and it forge welded beautifully. And then I simply punched the holes. And I've got these big chunky hinges because of that. So I will admit that that is not the most authentic thing, but of course it is authentic itself. What else can I tell you about? Probably these clinch nails. Clinch nails are directional. They're rectangular, well, hand cut, or cut rather, nails for wood are they're wider in one dimension than they are in another, and that dimension needs to you need to take the long dimension and go through the grain of the wood in that direction. If you try and go across the grain with the long dimension of a nail, you're going to split. You're going to get splits. So I had to be cognizant of that, and then when I punched the holes for my fasteners, I had to punch directionally. I had to think where things were going on the wood and punch in that. 112 square punches, or rectangular punches. That was a nightmare. But I did it, and it worked out very nicely because here are all of the ends of the clinch nails. An idea of a clinch nail is you drive a nail that is overly long all the way through the wood, and then turn one tip over and then turn the rest of it over so that the tip nails back in from the other side, and you can kind of peen your nail from either end, and you have a permanent fixation. Oh, look at all of these. I did get some blowouts down there when it came through. Like here is where it came through, and here is where the clinch went back into the wood. Gosh, that was a lot of clinch nails. I got pretty good at clinch nailing by the end. I wound up with some fairly firm opinions on clinch nails. The ones that I wound up using, I chose just because the head looked more or less right, or like fit with the aesthetic. And these are for sale on Amazon, but they're not the best clinch nails. Tremont was a vendor selling cut nails, and the nails are much better, way, way better as nails, but the heads were not as attractive. And so I went for the attractive style of the head rather than the quality of the nail. Oh well. I also made some of my own nails, and they were pretty good. They were very attractive, but they didn't work as well as either of the purchased nails, and it was so laborious. There's 112 of them. Oh my goodness. I couldn't see doing that. So that's this fellow. That is the iron-bound chest. This came out really well. I've wanted a treasure chest like this for the longest time, since I was a kid, and now I have one. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. It might wind up being a blanket chest. I have no idea what treasure is going to be stored inside my treasure chest, or where it's going to sit in my already very full home. But that is a question that I'll get to answer over these coming months. But this came out pretty well. I'm really happy with this. Yeah, really happy with this. This came out very, very well indeed. And that's it for this project. I will see you all in another video. Bye-bye.